Hello, in this video, we'll demonstrate how to solve some problems related to Lecture 5, which include topics such as band bending, carrier diffusion, and the Einstein relationship. So a very quick review of the topics first. So to get the general shape of the voltage, we have to flip the energy band diagram, whereas to get the general shape of the electric field, we have to differentiate the energy band diagram. These are the equations for the diffusion current density. Note that they depend on the electron and hole concentration gradients, dN over dx and dP over dx, and the diffusivity constants for electrons and holes. The total current flowing in a semiconductor has drift and diffusion components for electrons and holes, and thus the total current has 4 electron components, 2 for electrons and 2 for holes. However, at equilibrium, there must be no net current for electrons and no net current for holes. Thus, Jn is equal to 0 and Jp is equal to 0 at thermal equilibrium. This means that at thermal equilibrium, Jn drift plus Jn diff is equal to 0, while Jp drift plus Jp diff is equal to 0. And we'll also use the Einstein relationship, d over mu is equal to kT over Q. So once we know the value of mu and the temperature, then we can directly solve for the diffusivity constant. So for the first problem, we have this energy band diagram. A germanium sample at thermal equilibrium at room temperature has the energy band diagram shown. EC at the two sides are constant, so the plot is flat, but is linear in the middle. For germanium at room temperature, we use Ni is equal to 2 times 10 to the 13 per cubic centimeter. So for this problem, we'll have to do the following. Plot the voltage as a function of x and identify the potential difference across the two ends. X is equal to 0 and x is equal to L. We'll also have to plot the electric field as a function of x, the hole and the electron in the hole densities as a function of x, and the values at the two ends. And then we'll have to plot Jn drift, Jn diff, Jp drift, and Jp diff, and simply indicate the trends, no values needed. So we have summarized the important points in the given. So we have germanium, equilibrium, room temperature, the Ni for germanium, and we've also shown at the right side the energy band diagram given. So for the first point, we were asked to plot the voltage as a function of x and identify the potential difference across the two ends. Now, as we have said, we have to flip the EBD to get the voltage or the general shape of the voltage. So if we look at EC, it is constant, linearly increasing, and then constant again. And so if we flip that, we'll get this shape right here. However, since EI and EV are just parallel to EC, then we can also flip EC and EV and get this same plot for the voltage. So here we know that EI has the same trend as EC, and therefore, if we want to know how much EC has increased in this linear region, then we can also look at how much EI has increased in that linear region. So those two energy differences must be equal, and it would be easier if we note the value from EI since it is closer to the flat line EF. So from the drawing, we can actually say that EI has increased by 0.11 electron volts, and therefore since we flipped the plot, then EI, or the voltage, must decrease by 0.11 volts. For the electric field, we have to differentiate the energy band diagram, or we can actually just refer to the EC. So at the two ends, EC is flat, so the slope is 0, and therefore the electric field must be 0. However, at the middle, it is linearly increasing, and therefore its slope must be constant. And if we need to get an expression for the value of E of x at that region, we'll just get the slope. So change in y over change in x. So that is 0.11 volts over x2 minus x1. So now that we converted the numerator to voltage, so that we'll get some volts per centimeter for the electric field. And also, instead of referring to the energy band diagram to get the electric field, we can also use this other formula to get the electric field. So we can just use the negative of the slope of the voltage to get the electric field, and we'll end up with the same answer. So next, we are asked to plot n of x and p of x and indicate the values at the two ends. Now we'll have to use these formulas to plot n of x and p of x. So n of x is equal to ni e raised to ef minus ei over kt, and p of x is equal to ni e raised to negative ef minus ei over kt. Now, by observing these two equations, we note that the formula is based on ef minus ei. So if we plot first ef minus ei, we know that the left edge, that ef is above ei by 0.11 electron volts, and so we can start the plot like this, and eventually ef will linearly approach ei, and therefore at this point their difference is already 0. So the plot of ef minus ei should look like this one. So positive constant from 0 to x1, linearly decreasing from x1 to x2, and then 0 from x2 to L. Now another thing we'll have to be reminded of is the shape of the plots of sum e of x and e raised to minus x. So let's just say we use another variable to reduce confusion. Let's say we have a variable c. If we plot e raised to c, then what should it look like? So e raised to c should be this exponential here, while e raised to minus c should look something like this. So the dark green one is exponentially increasing, while the yellow green one is exponentially decreasing. So now that in this plot, our x-axis c is simply linearly increasing continuously from left to right. So when ef minus ei is linearly decreasing, just like what we have here, so from this point, it is linearly decreasing, then e of x must be going backwards in the plot since EF minus EI is linearly decreasing. And therefore, we can conclude that n of x must be exponentially decreasing, while p of x must be exponentially increasing. Since again, EF minus EI is linearly decreasing, if we focus on the plot for e raised to minus c, then it's as if we're going backwards and we'll be able to get a plot that is linearly increasing. So we should be able to get this plot right here. Note that the values at the two ends are constant since EF minus EI are constant on those two regions. Whereas at the middle, since EF minus EI is linearly decreasing, then e raised to EF minus EI over KT must be exponentially decreasing. So next, we also were asked to indicate the values at the two ends. So we'll just have to evaluate the formulas. So first, for n at x is equal to 0, its value is ni, which is 2 times 10 raised to 13 times e raised to EF minus EI, which is 0.11 electron volts over 0.026, since we are dealing with a material at room temperature. And with the help of our calculator, we should be able to get the value 1.375 times 10 to the 15 per cubic centimeter. So note that this value is greater than Ni, which is just 2 times 10 to the 13, since at 0 to x1, it looks like the material is an n-type. EF is above EI, and therefore n must be greater than Ni. As for the other end, we note that EF already coincides with EI, and therefore we can expect that its value must just be equal to Ni. Since e raised to 0 is just 1. Next, we need to plot p of x. So now what if we start with the values first? Since we already have a value for p of 0, which is this, we can then proceed with the law of mass action and solve for p at x is equal to 0. Again, we can use the law of mass action since this material is in thermal equilibrium. So Ni squared over n of 0, and that is 2 times 10 raised to the 13 squared over the solved value 1.375 times 10 to the 15. And we should be able to get that p at x is equal to 0 is 2.908 times 10 raised to 11. As for the other end, since EI is coinciding with EF, then again, it must look like an intrinsic semiconductor, and therefore N is equal to P is equal to Ni is equal to 2 times 10 to the 13. And from our plots, e raised to minus EF minus EI, but EF minus EI is linearly decreasing, and therefore the trend we'll expect must be exponentially increasing at the middle. For the next part, we need to plot Jn drift and Jn diff and indicate the trends. No values needed. So to start, we write here first the formula for Jn drift, and that is equal to Q mu N times E. However, we already obtained the plot for N and the electric field, while Q is a constant, and we'll also assume that mu N is just some constant. So what we'll have to do is basically multiply these two plots and get the trend for Jn drift. So at the sides, E of x is equal to 0. So here, so therefore when we multiply that to something, the result will be simply 0. Now at the middle, E of x is simply a constant while N of x is exponentially decreasing. So since this portion here is a constant, Q is a constant, mu N is a constant, then Jn drift must follow the same shape as N of x. And therefore, we'll get this plot here where at the two outer segments, the drift current density for electrons is 0, while it is simply exponential at the middle. Now for here we assumed that mu n does not change significantly, that it will not affect the shape of Jn drift. Now, why is this a necessary assumption? So if you look back at the energy band diagram, the material is in equilibrium, but the EF minus EI changes, and therefore it tells us that the doping concentration must be changing as is changing in space or position. And as the doping concentration changes, the mobility must change by some amount. However, again, we assume that mu n is simply a constant to be able to get this plot right here. So for the diffusion current, we'll not use the expanded formula for Jn diff. We can simply use the fact that the material is in thermal equilibrium, and when it is in equilibrium, the net flow of electrons must be equal to 0, and that in formula is Jn is equal to 0. And therefore, since Jn is equal to Jn diff plus Jn drift, and that is equal to 0, we can therefore conclude that Jn diff is simply the negative of Jn drift. And since we already have a plot for Jn drift, then we can simply flip the plot and say that the resulting plot is the one for Jn diff. So for the next part, we'll have to plot Jp drift and Jp diff. So now we need P of x instead of N of x, and we'll use the same E of x since in a material, the electrons and holes experience the same electric field. So note that for Jp drift, there is no negative sign, so we'll just have to multiply Q, mu p, p, and e, and we'll use the same assumption that mu p is simply a constant, Q is actually a constant, and therefore at the outer regions, if we multiply again with the electric field of 0, then Jp drift must be equal to 0. At the middle, the electric field is constant, so we'll just have to copy the same trend for P of x, which is exponentially increasing. And we should be able to get a plot that looks like this one. So why is the plot for Jp drift drawn to be smaller for Jn diff? Well, they are experiencing the same electric field, so um, they have the same value. Q is just a constant, whereas P is much less than N in this portion. So the current for holes at that portion must be much smaller than the current for electrons at that portion. And also at the segment right here, JP drift is slightly smaller than JN drift, even though their carrier concentrations are the same. Well, that's because we expect that the mobility for holes is a bit smaller than the mobility for electrons. And again, we are assuming that mu p does not change significantly. So again, instead of using the expanded formula for JP diff, we can still use the fact that the material is in thermal equilibrium, and therefore JP must be equal to 0, and therefore JP diff must be equal to negative JP drift. Now we have the orange plot for JP drift. We can therefore just flip it to get the plot for JP diff. Okay, so in summary, for this germanium sample at equilibrium at room temperature, with the EBD shown, we were able to determine the voltage by flipping EC or EI or EV. We can get the electric field by getting the slope of the EC or EI or EV. We can plot N of X and P of X based on the formulas, and then we can plot the currents starting from JN drift and JN drift and JP drift, and then flip it for JN diff and JP diff since the material is in equilibrium. However, flipping JN drift and JP drift cannot be done when the material is not in thermal equilibrium. So for the second problem, we are now given this energy band diagram for a silicon sample at room temperature. So everything is sloping up, including EF from 0 to L. And we are asked, is the sample in thermal equilibrium? Then we'll have to fill in the blanks for the following equations and then complete the table on the right by writing either a rightwards arrow, leftwards arrow, or 0. So first is the sample under thermal equilibrium. So note that in the given, nothing was mentioned about the material being in thermal equilibrium. However, we know that for a material in thermal equilibrium, the Fermi level must be flat. However, in this case, EF is increasing upwards and is not flat, and therefore, the material must not be in thermal equilibrium. So the answer is no. For the next question, we have to compare the electron concentration at the left and right ends and the hole concentrations at the left and right ends. But we know that the carrier concentrations must be related to the energy difference between EF and EI. However, in the plot provided, EF minus EI or EI minus EF is constant throughout. And therefore, we can say that the electrons and holes are equal at the left side are equal to the electrons and the holes at the right side, or actually throughout the material, and thus N at 0 is equal to N at L, and P at 0 is equal to P at L. Next, for the voltage, we'll have to flip the EBD to get V of X and get a plot like this, and therefore we can conclude that the voltage at the left side, or at X is equal to 0, is higher than the voltage at the right side. Now, when we differentiate EBD to get the electric field, EC is simply linearly increasing upwards, and therefore the electric field must be some positive constant, and therefore the electric field at X is equal to 0 must be equal to the electric field at X is equal to L. Okay, so for the next part, we'll have to identify the direction of the following: the carrier drift, drift current, carrier diffusion, and diffusion current for both electrons and holes, given the energy band diagram. So to help us imagine what happens, we have provided a drawing of a free electron and a hole in our energy band diagram. So starting first with carrier drift, to determine its direction, carriers are drifting based on the electric field, and therefore we need to identify the direction of the electric field. However, the electric field is simply the derivative of the energy band diagram, or EC, and since EC is linear upwards, then the electric field must be rightwards, or positive. And since the electric field is rightwards, it must be pulling the electrons to the left and pushing the electrons to the right. Now again, to imagine drift, we can simply use the balls and balloons analogy, and therefore we can say that the electrons must be drifting to the left while the holes must be drifting to the right. Next, the drift current is related to the carrier drift, but since this now is drift current, and current is the flow of positive charges and the electrons are negatively charged, therefore we'll have to flip or negate the direction of the carrier drift of the electrons. Whereas for holes, we can simply follow the direction of the flow of holes. For the next part, we'll be concerned with the diffusion current. However, we have already noted that N of X and P of X must be constant since EF minus EI is constant, and therefore there is no concentration gradient within the material, even if the energy band diagram is not flat, and therefore there should be no carrier diffusion and no diffusion current. So in summary, for this energy band diagram shown, it is not in thermal equilibrium since the Fermi level is not flat. Since EF minus EI is equal throughout, then N of 0 must be equal to N of L. P of 0 is equal to P of L. We determine this by getting the plot for voltage. We determine this by getting the plot for the electric field, where we note that the slope of EC is simply a constant. And we have already identified or completed this table. So that's it for the problem solving for this lecture. Thank you very much.